Perfect with no flaws at all are the laws of Allah. A way of life, a way of life, a way of life, a way of life.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All praise belongs to Allah, and may His peace and blessings be upon His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I welcome you, dear viewers, to this episode where we are looking at etiquette and its importance in Islam. I welcome my dear shuyukh who are with us contributing to this episode, Sheikh Asim Al-Hakim from Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Abdurrahim McCarthy from the USA, and Sheikh Mamdouh Muhammad also from the USA. Now, we've taken a look at the etiquettes and the character that we have in dealing with others, and we dealt with the etiquette of the worshipper and his lords, dealing with the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, looking at the Sahaba, and so you can see we're going down. And now the next part that I want to introduce, inshallah, is the etiquette of the believer with his parents. No doubt this is something of great importance because this is stressed in the Quran, stressed in the Sunnah. So I'll begin, inshallah, with Sheikh Asim, just to remind us why the parents are so important and honoring them within Islam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa alihi wa sahbihi ma tada bihudahu amma ba'du. The cause, the reason that we exist is to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. And we are also grateful to our parents because they are the reason or the cause that we exist. So Allah Azza wa Jal made our parents our passage to existence, to this life, and therefore Allah Azza wa Jal obliged upon us to have the gratitude, the obedience, and the respect to our parents, to the extent that if you look in the Quran, you'll find a number of places where Allah Azza wa Jal associates the obedience or the kindness to the parents with the Tawheed. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah Azza wa Jal has ruled that you should not worship any other with Him and that you treat your parents well. So a Muslim looks at his parents as something that is so precious, that is so important in his life, that when talking to them, there has to be an etiquette to be followed. Not like you're talking to your brother or to your boss. You talk to them in a fashion, as we will inshallah come to indicate how the Salaf used to treat their parents.
I'd like to add here something that many stories in the Quran that would reflect exactly the same. See the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam taking his son to slaughter him according to the dream that he had seen, and we know that the dreams of the messengers of Allah are nothing but the truth.
Revelation from Allah.
The revelation from Allah. Then we understand from this story that he talked to his son. He said that inni ara fil manami anni adbahk. I have seen in my dream that I'm slaughtering you. You know that we know that it was very hard on Ibrahim alayhi salam. It's so difficult situation that perhaps only the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can deal with it. Then he related the message to his son, and the son, yes, submitted to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and showed love and respect for his father by even the language that he used. He used the word Ya Abat, oh my beloved father. He could have said Ya Abi, but even it shows you that how much respect he had, although he was about to be slaughtered. Just few minutes before he's going to be slaughtered, he's still talking to his father with this respect because he is an embodiment of a Muslim. He's a Muslim son, Ismail alayhi salam. So this is one of the examples that every Muslim knows, and we try to demonstrate this in our lives.
Sheikh Mamdouh?
Yes, please.
If you can remind us with the 4 ayahs where Ibrahim, peace be upon him, was talking to his father. When he said, oh my father, I have been given knowledge from Allah Azza wa Jal that you don't have, and Ya Abati. Again, he's using
4 times.
Yes, he is using that don't follow the shaitan, and then you will be an ally with the shaitan. Oh father, I am afraid that Allah Azza wa Jal would send his wrath upon you, and then you will become with the shaitan, and so on. So,
and his father would respond to him in a very tough way. Then the answer
He
from
would stay in a respectful way.
yeah, still respecting him.
SubhanAllah, I think, the adab or the etiquette with the parents, it really shows one of the beauties of Islam. And to the Muslim, it actually increases his faith to show him this is the religion of truth. And even the non-Muslims, when they hear about this, they're amazed, because obviously, as we know, when they're coming from the West, people who grew up in the West, and perhaps a lot of times we might have mistreated our parents, raised our voice to them, talked back to them. We've even seen people physically fight. Being from Irish background, we couldn't have done that. We wouldn't be here today if we did that, because Irish people are different. But in general, and you have seen that, where people actually will physically, with their mothers, with their fathers, they will physically fight. Now, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, not to say, لا تقل لهما أف. And now, uf in the Arabic language is the smallest amount of disrespect. It's a sound which just comes off, like today, what people do? Or like you just did, like this. Oof, it's the same type of thing. It's a small amount. You can't even say this to your parents. And you see the effect it has on the Muslims, even till today, alhamdulillah. And this is one of the things that, wallahi, we can be proud of as Muslims. Very proud of. Look around the Muslim societies. Honestly, do you see many, anyways, the old folk home or the, for any elderly homes? You might see one or two here and there because of people who don't have anybody. Never you will see a Muslim sending his mother and father to this. In fact, they stay and they take care of him. They wait on him hand and foot in order to what? Enter into the Jannah, because they know that this is the way to the Jannah. I don't know if you guys saw the picture. Actually, I took it from Sheikh al-Munajjid. He had posted it, and I posted it on my site as well. A young man in Turkey after the earthquake, and his mother came out of the house when he had put her in the wheelchair, and they're out in the street. And she was very cold, her feet were very cold, so this young man had went down and he was warming his mother's feet with his hand and blowing. He was blowing into him because the hot air that comes from the mouth to heat up the feet of his elderly mother. And you see the beauty of this. It shows you the beauty of Islam and how Islam has given the parents their right. The beauty of the ayat, when they make dua for them. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and to have rahmah with them. كَمَا رَبَّيَانِ صَغِيرًا. It says they were merciful with me when I was young, also have mercy with them now when they come to this old age.
I remember the story that I mentioned in one of the episodes of a Christian woman who came bringing her two children. One was 9 and the other was 11. And she brought them to an Islamic center in Philadelphia, and more specifically in Villanova. And she met with the head of this Islamic center, and she said that I want you to make my kids Muslims.
She wasn't a Muslim.
She wasn't a Muslim. And he asked her, why is that? He asked her, are you a Muslim? And she said, no. Why do you want them to be Muslim? She said that I want them to deal with me, to treat me in a good manner as the Muslim children treat their parents when they grow up. Yes, when I grow up and I become old, I want them to treat me very well. And the story ended with 3 of them became Muslims, alhamdulillah. This again shows the whole world that Muslims have.
It's interesting taking a look at this, because a child isn't yet aqid. He doesn't realize what he's doing. So they're only doing what they pick up from around them. So you'd see that a child disrespecting their parents means they haven't been raised properly. It's not because they've rationally thought, I should treat my parents wrong. They haven't been taught the right way. And you see, as you've pointed out, comparing the Muslim who speaks to the parents in the kind way. One thing that amazed me, like as you mentioned, growing up, Irish, Italian background, I could never call my relatives except by their title. It was forbidden for me to call them by their name. It was always dear uncle or something like this. And I remember one of my neighbors, he would call his mother by her first name. Even I couldn't bear this. How can you call your mother by her first name? It's no surprise that later on, he would even strike his mother. Now you see again, if a child, if they were left to go astray or just to follow what the people were doing, you'd see many of them might eventually do this. But like as you mentioned, having that upbringing with Islam, we train the children so that for the rest of their life they're going to be like this man in Turkey. This didn't come by coincidence, it comes by Islam.
And the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, very famous hadith, almost every Muslim knows it. The one who came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked him, who deserves my company, my companionship? And then the Prophet ﷺ said that, your mother. And then, and who else? And then he said, your mother. Then who else? He said, then your mother. And then who else? And then your father. And by the way, this is, how do you call it, 2-in-1. It serves us and shows us the beauty of Islam in raising the children to love their parents. And it shows us also the status of women in Islam.
75%.
75%, yes, is given to the mother, and 25% is given to the poor father. Yes, because it is the mother who did the wonderful job in raising the child
And the child,
carrying him,
it
and
shows
the
where the
delivery.
respect is due.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, and this hadith was reported in Al-Adab al-Mufrad for the Bukhari, compiled by the Bukhari, Imam Bukhari, and it's different than Al-Sahih. A lot of the people usually make the mistake of saying, and Al-Bukhari reported, and they don't differentiate between Al-Sahih, which is all authentic, and Al-Adab al-Mufrad, which has authentic and weak hadiths. But this is an authentic hadith. In the season of Hajj, Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, was around the Kaaba, and he saw a man from Yemen who have their hearts filled with Iman, carrying his mother, making tawaf on his shoulders. And he came all the way from Yemen. We didn't have cars or airplanes. This is the way he came, carrying
What
her.
is the distance approximately from
Like,
Yemen
I think
to-
it's about 2,000 kilometers plus.
Okay, 2,000 kilometers.
Kilometers.
Okay.
There's a lot of
It's just all mountains.
Hills and mountains.
Yes,
Yes,
it's all
yes.
mountainous area. So the man was making tawaf, and he's saying in Arabic, "Inni ba'iruha al-mudallali in tud'a rikabuha lam ud'ari," that I am her humble ride, her humble camel. If all the camels are frightened and go away, I am not frightened.
He was carrying his mother.
He's carrying
on,
his mother
on his back.
So he saw Ibn Umar and said, Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, do you think I have fulfilled my mother rights? To us, on the face value, akhi, you have
Yes, you've done more than was expected.
Ibn Umar said, and he knows because he was close to the Prophet ﷺ, not even one of her extractions while being pregnant or while giving delivery, not one single. And this brings me back to the issue of this Italian relative of yours who used to call his mother by...
This was my neighbor.
Neighbor,
Oh, your
yeah.
neighbor.
An Italian wouldn't do that. I hope not.
Do apologize.
That's why he said Italian Irish, because we as Irish are Italian, we don't have those things.
Okay,
Just
alhamdulillah.
before you mention this, inshallah, we're going to go to a very short break and we'll come back on this point. May Allah reward you all. So dear viewers, do stay tuned, inshallah. We'll be back after a very short moment.
Perfect with it all.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, dear viewers. We're here looking at the topic of etiquette and its importance in Islam. Now, before the break, Sheikh Asim, you were about to introduce or mention a point.
Yes, when you mentioned this neighbor of yours who used to call his mother on first name basis, Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, saw a man with a younger man. So he addressed the younger man. He said, who's this? And the younger man said that this is my father. Look at the advice that Abu Hurairah, the companion of the Prophet ﷺ, may Allah be pleased with him, gave to that man. He said, if this man is your father, never walk in front of him, and never sit before him, and never call him by his name. Look at the gratitude and respect. You never walk in front of your father, because then you don't know. It's a sign of disrespect. Nowadays, people don't care about this. They didn't even, years ago, it was part of the etiquette for the non-Muslims. When they come to a door, they open the door for the elders or for the ladies. They say ladies first. Nowadays, with this no segregation policy and equality, this doesn't happen anymore. With the parents, it never changes. Never walk in front of him, always out of respect. He's the one who leads the way. And when you enter a house or a room, never sit before him. Wait until he sits, and then, father or mother, do you need anything? Should I help you and assist you in any way? And never call them on first name basis. This is the Islamic teaching. And that is why, as in Ireland or in Italy or in Colombia or in Brazil, where they respect, where they still have this
Islamic name.
bond between the family and respect to the elders, they appreciate this a lot when it comes to Islam.
Yes, which tells you that there is a common thread among this, which tells you that it is the original nature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created every human with. It's so common. It's in our blood. It's in our DNA that we love and respect our parents. And this shows that Islam is the only religion, perhaps, that kept all these etiquettes since Adam alayhi salam until nowadays.
So it's not cultural.
Yeah.
You can see it in China, you can see it in Japan, you can see it in the Philippines, and I believe that the Filipinos are the fastest reverting nationality to Islam. because
Yeah.
they have this, they're so close to
Very
Islam,
similar.
alhamdulillah.
So many
But
parts.
the astonishing thing that this is not cultural.
It is not?
It is part of your religion. And I believe that if you look at the hadiths that highlight the position of the parents, it is mind-blowing when the Prophet tells us, alayhi salatu wasalam, that the father is the middle gate to paradise. So you keep that gate or you lose it. Meaning if you are disobedient, disrespectful to your parent, you may face the punishment of not being deprived from entering Jannah. Not only the father, even the mother. When the companion came to the Prophet ﷺ and he wanted to go for jihad and he wanted to fight for the cause of Allah, and he asked him, do you have a mother? And he said yes. And the Prophet told him ﷺ, ilzam rijlayha, yani associate yourself and try to be next to her feet. Why? Because
serve her.
al-jannatu thamma, because paradise is there. And the hadith of the three who were trapped in a cave and a big rock came and blocked their way out. Each one started to ask Allah with the best deed he did. What one of them, what his
One
deed?
of them, when I was just listening to the story in the morning, actually on the way to work, Sheikh Ibn Baz, may Allah have mercy upon him, he was talking about the issue of the tawassul, that you only make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and one of the ways you can do it is through your good deeds. So he said, what they did, they said to make dua through our good deeds. So one of them had said that I had something he did every night, that his mother and father, that after he milked their sheep, he would not let anybody drink before his mother and father. They would drink first and then he would go give it to the kids and to the rest of the family. And what happened that night, he was busy out doing his work and he came home late and found his parents sleeping before he could milk the sheep for them. So he said he stood there awaiting quietly, even though his kids were crying at his feet from the hunger they wanted it. And he said, I would not let anybody drink before my mother and father out of the respect that he had for them.
Yeah, subhanAllah. Now, I'm going to ask a question. It happens quite often that someone hears all of these ahadith, all of these commands, respecting your parents, but they're going to think it's somebody else's parents, and they're always going to say, well, my parents, maybe they're non-Muslim. My parents, they're not the same as the parents of Sahaba. They, sometimes abuse me, they disrespect me, they don't look after me. Is there this, exemption that it means, well, if your parents don't look after you, then okay, you don't have to look after them.
Allah made this clear in the Quran, subhanAllah. And then وَمَا فَرَطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. There's nothing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala left out from the book. If you don't, and you find it either in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, both which are forms of revelation. When he said in the Quran, if they call you to shirk,
It's the only
situation.
exception.
Only exception.
Otherwise, you treat them exactly as you treat
Even if they're wrong.
Muslims. And
You
you
have to
can
take
tell
it.
us about how do you behave with your parents after you became a Muslim?
Alhamdulillah, even Abdurrahim would be able to, I
I
suppose,
was
say,
always good myself.
like
I don't
to
know.
I was a good kid growing up, alhamdulillah.
All
But
of you, that-
knowing as
lucky
a
to
Muslim,
have
my mother loves to bring this point. Like when she found out that I have to obey her, she
yeah.
said, this works pretty well for me.
It's like when your wife found out that she doesn't have to work, and you have to.
They're happy. And my mother, no doubt she respects this. She knows, and I hope she can always continue to rely upon this. If she needs something, I'll do it. And even, sometimes because I feel she feels bad, because my other brothers might not do it. So she knows she can put it on me, but she doesn't. So I think ahead, and I realize if there's something, and it's my pleasure to look after her.
To tell you a story, I heard my grandfather talking to one of his old army buddies on the telephone. And he was talking about me and the changes he saw in me. He said, I don't know what it is, what they have, these Muslims,
Some magic or something.
these Muslims. But he said they have this mosque he goes to, they have the Quran, that they read and this type of thing. But he said, the changes in this boy are miraculous. He said never he raises his voice to us now. I've only Muslim like a month now when I heard this story. And he said never he raises his voice. He'll tell him to do something, he does it immediately. And he never backtalks, never does this. He said he comes in on time now. Because sometimes I would leave astaghfirullah. When I became Muslim, I was only 18, so I was on a wrong path. I would leave during the afternoon time and come back the next day. And actually during that time my mother had moved, so I was actually living with them. So this was really frustrating for them. Because my grandparents come from the countryside, and I used to do something like this. I'm coming from the city. So it was something really strange for them. So when they saw this miraculous change in just a month's time, they were really impressed. He was bragging. Even though he was a non-Muslim, he was bragging to his friends about the changes that Islam had done to me.
If I may, nowadays I get a lot of emails from brothers and sisters complaining of the rudeness the viciousness, the bad attitude of their parents. And they say, I cannot take it. I have to, stand up and I have to fight. And sometimes I raise my voice, sometimes I say bad things. So what's the ruling on this? And I always tell them, when your parents are good for you, the logical thing is that you're good for them. So there's no test. Anyone who does good for you, by default, you're going to be kind to him, even if he's a non-Muslim. But the test from Allah Azza wa Jal is when they are not so good to you. So what you're doing is a fulfillment of Allah's commandment, not because they're good to you or bad to you. You're doing it as a form of worship. And by Allah, if we appreciate, if we learn, and believe me, no one appreciates this more than someone who lost his father. Alhamdulillah, I have my mother, and she's almost 80 years of age. But I remember my father, and I could not do what I wanted to do. And I don't know if Allah Azza wa Jal has tested me to be around him when he was alive. Would I have done the things that I'm thinking of doing? So when you look at your mother, if you still have your mother, or if you still have your parents, they are your gateway to paradise. Akhi, go out of your way. Some people don't even visit their parents except once a week, and they live in the same city.
I will take it one step further. The etiquette that we're talking about is not just with the Muslim parents. It is so wide that includes all human beings. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when he told us, don't be imma, don't be a person who just follow blindly what people do.
This hadith is a little bit weak.
It's not
authentic. لا يكون أحدكم إمعة إن أحسن الناس أحسن ونساء أساء.
It's not authentic.
It's a statement by one of the companions.
It is root, but it's clear.
But the Islamic root of it,
It's correct.
that even if people do something wrong, you as a Muslim you should do something good, which is the general etiquette of any Muslim. You should treat people, all of them.
You're the benchmark.
No exception.
To others.
The benchmark. Dealing with people in general, it has to be in a very good manner. What is missing is the application, and we wish that Muslims would increase the amount of their knowledge, and so they would learn these things and immediately they apply them.
And just I remember one time when I was in Kuwait, and the Kuwaitis, I really loved the relationship they had with their parents, very strong. And a lot of the youth, they used to like to go out and they would like to hang out, and they have the Diwaniyah where they go. This one brother, he would disappear all the time at Maghrib, and I really liked the guy, so I was like, where are you? Let's go hang out, let's go to this place. He said, I can't. He said, I have, for several years. He said, every single day after I pray Maghrib, I have to go kiss my mother on her head and have a funjan of qahwa, a glass of coffee with her. And he said, if I don't do it, I don't feel complete, and she gets worried. So he said, I know she doesn't like this. So he said, every day I go to her. And sometimes, with your boys, you're having fun, and he gets up and he goes to his mother, and I love that. If we maybe could end the episode, if you could remind us about the story of the one who didn't become a Sahabi, who was in Yemen. The Prophet ﷺ, he gave glad tidings.
Inshallah, we'll leave this for a coming episode, inshallah. May Allah reward you all. It's been very good being in your company, being able to share with you. And may Allah reward you also, our dear viewers. And we hope, inshallah, that you've benefited from the programs. Until then, I greet you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
A way of life, a way of life, a way of life.